we now know what strategic alliances are, and we also know that they come in different forms and shape, right? But what we don't know as of now is whether it's actually a good idea to work together with others, whether it's a good idea in terms of it's paying off, meaning that there is a positive return, be it financial or otherwise, of a strategic alliance. And this is exactly what we want to explore in our video now. Does it pay off to partner with others? And we have three key objectives in our video. The first is we want to review the possible reasons of engaging or for engaging in partnerships, because essentially we need to know the motives if we are to evaluate whether a particular partnership has been successful or not. And we will then reflect upon the risks and challenges associated with inter-firm collaboration with strategic alliances. And you will actually come to see that most strategic alliances are retrospectively considered a failure. And we will unpack some of the reasons why strategic alliances, such as the one between Panasonic and Tesla, can fail. This is what we're doing in the second part, where we speak about the risks and challenges associated with strategic alliances. And we'll then end in the last part of our video by developing together a set of fairly simple rules for managing strategic alliances in view of reducing their likelihood of failure. So let us begin by trying to review the possible reasons for partnering. So why are we doing it in the first place? So it might be useful for this purpose to look at our two key theories that we used in this course so far, namely the market-based view and the resource-based view. And if we adopt these two theoretical lenses, we come to see quite different, or we come to notice and detect quite different motives for partnering with others. So let's first of all use the market-based view as our lens to try to identify why we might possibly think about partnering with others. So as you know, the market-based view is very much about industry structures, and now the idea could be, well, maybe strategic alliances allow us to shape the structure of our industry. And after all, it's the structure of the industry that determines our own profit potential, right? According to Michael Porter and those embracing the market-based view. So what could strategic alliances do with regards to the industry structure? Well, maybe partnering with competitors could help us to somehow contain the level of rivalry in our industry. For instance, by partnering in terms of, or with regards to developing automated driving technologies, will reduce the rivalry in this field by BMW, Audi, and Daimler, right? By creating a strategic alliance around this. It could also help us increase the bargaining power vis-à-vis our buyers and suppliers. It could also help us to increase barriers of entry, and it might also help us to enter new and more attractive markets. So, for instance, Daimler initially decided to partner with Tesla to accelerate its development of electric cars. If we now look at the second key element of the market-based view, namely generic strategies, then we can also see that strategic alliances can help the focal organization to implement effectively a particular generic strategy adopted. So the example of Tesla and Panasonic again is quite a good example for trying to realize economies of scale, which are very important for a cost leader. And as we know, Tesla aspires to deliver cars that are reliable and compatible with the mass market, hence affordable. And that requires Tesla to drive down its units costs. And as for those adopting a diversification or a differentiation strategy, partnerships also allow to access opportunities for differentiation. For instance, FCA, that is Fiat Chrysler Corporation, could differentiate itself from its competitors successfully if they manage to move the automated driving capabilities of their minivans forward, hence gaining or establishing a differentiating factor in this regard. So a few reasons that we can extract here from the market-based view. Let's now shift from the market-based view to the resource-based view. From looking at the industry to looking at the firm and its specific resource base. So we have resources and capabilities. Resources are the building blocks of organizations, right? The key assets an organization possesses or controls. And capabilities are what we do with the respective resources. So by engaging in a strategic alliance, by engaging in a partnership, we can access complementary resources that would be very difficult to develop or acquire. And that might be one reason for FCA to partner with Alphabet to drive their automated driving agenda forward. We can integrate distinct resources to provide a superior product or service. Again, this idea of this example of the Fiat Chrysler automobile partnership with Alphabet. And then, in many instances, partnering is less resource intensive than mergers and acquisitions. Mergers and acquisitions can become tremendously expensive for organizations. And quite often, partnering with others might be a very good alternative and much cheaper alternative to this. So strategic alliances are a means for me as the focal organization to access resources that I need and that I can only very difficultly develop myself. And the same basically applies for capabilities. I can gain access to complementary capabilities that I wouldn't be able to develop myself. And I would also have the opportunity to develop on or to focus on my core competencies. So for instance, BMW, Daimler and Audi, they're no experts in terms of mapping services, right? Of developing geographic maps, of developing mapping technologies. They want to focus on their core competencies, which is to develop and manufacture high-performing cars. And by drawing on this partnership or absorbing the Nokia here company, they'll be able to focus on their core competencies. So two theoretical perspectives that tell us a little bit about why it might be a good idea to partner with others. Now let's see what practitioners say themselves. And we've listed here a set of possible reasons for why organizations might want to partner with others. And you can read through it yourself, but some of these include, for instance, broadening the range of expertise, developing specialist products, improving our reputation, sharing research and development, spreading the costs and risk of new equipment, and so forth. And they were asked now, the practitioners, of how important these respective motives are for their own cooperative strategies. And here's what came out as a result. So they're ordered in terms of their perceived importance. And what you see is that expanding the range of expertise is the first and most important reason for engaging in strategic alliances, followed by developing specialist products and so forth. Let's now look at our Tesla example, and what do you think? Which of these reasons probably is driving the partnership between Tesla and Panasonic? Well, my take on it is that it's a partnership to develop specialist products, to develop and manufacture these specialist products, namely the lithium-ion batteries for the Model 3, for the Powerwall, and so forth. And it's importantly also a strategic alliance to share the costs and risks associated with building and operating the gigafactory. So I think we have now an initial idea of what we want to achieve when we engage in a strategic alliance. Let us now look at how successful strategic alliances are in actual fact. And I'll share with you here now a few studies from practice, so studies from consultancies in particular, and studies from academia about the possible success rates of strategic alliances. What do you think? Which share of strategic alliances is likely to be successful? Is it 5%? Is it 100%? Is it 50%? What do you think? Well, let's look at it. So the studies from practice actually have reported failure rates in strategic alliances that amount to that range from anywhere between 33% to 70%. So according to these studies, between 33% and 70% of cooperative arrangements of strategic alliances fail. And we will later need to unpack what failure actually means. But using the definitions of the respective studies, between 33 and 70% of strategic alliances fail. Academic studies show a very similar picture. We have a range here of failure from anywhere between 28% to as high as 80% failure rates. So it's by no means trivial to lead strategic alliances to success. It might even be that the majority of strategic alliances fails. But the question now is, what do we, or what do they, the authors, actually mean by failure? And research so far, both in practice and in academia, has not always been consistent in defining what failure means to them. So let's review this quickly. So there are a few studies who say that failure actually means an alliance wasn't meeting the initial objectives, it's unsatisfactory, it's not meeting the expectations that the core stakeholders had initially. So a subjective assessment of what failure is. And then it becomes more complex if we think about the other ways in which we can frame, or studies framed, what a failure of a strategic alliance is. So we learned that a strategic alliance might have a fixed end date. And if we end the strategic alliance before that fixed end date, so prematurely, that might be interpreted as a sign of failure. But that could be also problematic, right? Because maybe there are good reasons for ending the alliance, maybe because it has been successful in achieving the common goals. It could also be that the strategic alliance is disappointing, is failing from a relational perspective because there's conflict among the parties involved, but yet at the same time be very successful from a business case. Since a strategic alliance involves at least two parties, it could also be that a strategic alliance is a failure for one, but a success for the other. Maybe the alliance between Tesla and Panasonic is a success for Tesla, but a failure for Panasonic because it's not meeting the expectations that Panasonic executives had initially. So this idea of failure in strategic alliance is quite a complex one, right? We need to be careful in defining this appropriately. And then the question is, which might be somewhat an interesting paradox, is how can we explain the popularity of strategic alliances despite these high failure rates? So why are we doing it nonetheless? Why are strategic alliances perhaps one of the most popular strategic moves organizations embrace? Well, there are a number of possible explanations that have been advanced, also from those involved in deciding upon strategic alliances. And one is similar to the entrepreneurs who say, look, we can beat the odds. We are better than the average. It's obviously a problematic statement. If everybody says they're better than the average, then you can see, well, it's unlikely to work out for everybody. But that's one possible explanation. Another is that we have no choice. Surviving in our industry can only be achieved by partnering. We can't do it ourselves. So for Tesla, they could have said, look, we can't do the Gigafactory by ourselves. We need to partner with others. Or we're no better at doing this ourselves. There might be risks associated with partnering, but there are also risks associated with doing it by ourselves. And then in a real options context, I'm engaging in multiple partnerships and I expect some to fail. That's totally all right. That's part of the game. And I account for this when I set up my portfolio of partnerships. And finally, the issue of timing comes into play, because often the cost of a strategic alliance occur initially in the setup stage, whereas the benefits take time until they materialize. So evaluating the performance of a strategic alliance is to a large extent a matter of the timing of this evaluation.